Hey, Politigals, welcome back to Base Behavior, where we do not hold back and we do not sugarcoat anything. And y'all, it is 60 degrees as I am filming right now, so you better believe that I brought out the leggings and the fall sweaters because it's August, which means that college football officially starts this month. So I am in an incredible mood, and we have to savor this while we can because we know in a few days it's going to be like 90 degrees again. So, all of that being said, we have a stacked lineup today. First, we are talking about the murder of a New York City CEO, not just the horrifying crime itself, but the even more horrifying response from the left that tells you everything about where our culture is right now. Then we're breaking down Trump's move to bring back the presidential fitness test. Yes, the sit ups, the mile run, the whole deal, and why some people aren't exactly thrilled about it. Then finally, we are going to dive into the summer of crash out because if it feels like everything is spiraling a little bit lately, you're not imagining it. Let's get into it. So we all remember the shooting in Manhattan that happened last month, the one where a gunman stormed a corporate office and killed multiple people, including a senior Blackstone executive and a New York police officer. It was horrifying, but what is even more horrifying is how the internet responded afterwards. That's what I want to talk about today, not the crime itself, but the culture that actually celebrated it. So the woman who was killed was Wesley LePatner. She was a senior executive at Blackstone, a CEO within one of the largest investment firms in the world. She was a mother of two. She helped lead Blackstone's women's initiative. She mentored countless other women in finance and was just well known for her generosity and her professionalism, a success story by every metric. And yet, the response to her death was one of the most disturbing things that I've seen in a long time. Far left extremists began posting memes. They shared slogans like CEO down, joked that she got Luigi'd, and turned her murder into a punchline. I mean, just take a look at some of these disgusting posts celebrating her murder. There are TikToks mocking her, Reddit threads celebrating her downfall, and comments justifying the violence because she was rich and worked in finance. This isn't fringe. This is what online leftist culture is breeding. The left's response to this tragedy is disturbing and heartbreaking and truly deplorable, but one thing that it isn't is surprising, because for a group of people who have successfully normalized the murder of innocent children, what can't they rationalize at this point? If they're okay with the taking of human life at its most vulnerable point, of course they can continue down the path of rationalizing murder. First it's the unborn, then it's the sick or the elderly, and now it's the successful. If you have too much money or too much power or too much status, well, that's justification enough, right? This is the moral rot that happens when you teach people that feelings matter more than facts, that envy is a valid reason for hate. We've raised a generation that confuses justice with revenge and thinks that destroying someone successful is somehow noble. And here's the other thing that I can't stop thinking about. It's the hypocrisy. Okay, these are the same people who spent years telling women to chase our dreams, to climb the ladder, to be a girl boss. They said, get your bag, queen, and you can do anything a man can do. Well, Wesley LePatner did. Okay, she climbed the ladder, she shattered the ceiling, she held a C-suite title in one of the most powerful firms on Wall Street. She was a mom, she was a mentor, a leader, a woman who had quite literally reached the peak of her career in both title and influence, and yet the left still said that she was the enemy. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the left's praise of women only extends as far as their usefulness to the narrative. If you're a woman who supports abortion and waves the rainbow flag and fights the patriarchy, you are celebrated. But if you're a woman who thrives in a system that they hate, even if you've done nothing wrong, you're a target. And that's the second major problem here, is the selective morality. Because if this were a woman of color or a trans woman or some well-known progressive activist killed in a mass shooting, we would be flooded with think pieces and candlelight vigils. The hashtags would never end. But a corporate woman, someone who's like a capitalist and a successful mom, they make jokes about it and they call it justice. This isn't about equity. This isn't about progress, this is about control. It's the same mentality that justifies vandalizing churches in the name of women's rights, or harassing Supreme Court justices at their homes, or firebombing pro life pregnancy centers. When your worldview depends on hating the people that you disagree with, violence starts to look righteous. And if we don't call it out, it will keep spreading. If we don't name this for what it is, which is ideological extremism, we're going to look back and wonder how we let it get this far. And I know that this is heavy, but I also think it's necessary because our silence has consequences. Let me know in the comments, were you shocked by the way that people responded to this woman's death? And what do you think it says about where our culture is heading? Because I don't care who you voted for or what your politics are, murder is never justified, and celebrating it is not progress, it's barbaric. Honestly, I think it's exhausting watching our culture tear down people who achieve big things, especially women. And it's not just happening in extreme cases like the Blackstone shooting, even the idea of encouraging kids to work hard and be physically strong is getting pushback now. Last week, Trump announced that he was bringing back the presidential fitness test in schools. And instead of saying, like, hey, that might actually be good for kids, some people couldn't help but criticize it. So let's talk about it. President Trump just announced a plan to bring back the presidential fitness test in schools. Yes, that presidential fitness test, the one that made every millennial girl dread going to gym class in the early 2000s. But I actually think that this is a good thing. And honestly, I don't really understand why it was ever taken away in the first place. Let's start with what's in Trump's new executive order. It is called the American Academy for Physical Fitness. The goal is to promote exercise and health education and physical activity in schools across the country. And yes, part of that includes reviving the classic presidential fitness test. Now, if you grew up before 2012, you remember it. The sit-ups, the push-ups, the pull-ups, the sit and reach, and then the infamous 1 mile run. It was hard and awkward, but it was also a challenge, one that taught us something about effort and improvement. The test was officially scrapped during the Obama administration, and then they replaced it with something called, I think, like Fitness Gram, which focused more on health-related criteria rather than performance. So essentially, they took away the competition and then replaced it with feel-good participation metrics. And look where that got us. Right now, nearly 1 in 5 children in the US is obese. Gym class is often optional. Recess has been cut in a lot of schools. Kids are spending more time staring at screens than moving their bodies. And somehow we're acting like that is fine, but running a mile is too much. The pushback on this has been kind of ridiculous. Some media outlets have called it fat phobic. They said that it could traumatize kids. I saw one article claim that making kids do pull-ups could cause a lifetime of shame. Like, what? I think one thing all of this media outrage has showed us is that we've lost the plot. Okay, let's be honest. It's not just kids anymore. The left lost their minds over Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ad because, she looked healthy and young and beautiful, and that was enough to cause a full-scale online meltdown. Because in today's body positivity culture, even looking fit is now offensive. We've shifted from wanting people to be healthy to just wanting them to be themselves, even if that means ignoring obesity, glorifying unhealthy habits, and demonizing anyone who sets fitness goals. The idea that fitness is aspirational has become taboo, and wanting to look and feel strong is labeled problematic. This is the exact mindset that got us here in the first place. The fear of hurting feelings has overtaken our desire to actually help people thrive. And now, when Trump dares to say that we should be proud of strength and challenge kids to move their bodies, the left acts like it's a hate crime. We should want kids to be strong. We should want kids to work hard and set goals and be proud of what their bodies can do. That's not bullying, that's basic health and confidence building. And honestly, I think that's the part that the left hates the most, that the presidential fitness test didn't just measure strength, it rewarded effort and excellence. It encouraged competition. It set a national standard and said, hey, here's what you can aim for. Was everyone going to crush the mile? No, I certainly didn't. But it gave us something real to work towards, okay? Not just another participation ribbon. And that mindset, that's exactly what we need more of right now, not less. Because this isn't just about gym class, it's about reviving a culture of discipline. When you remove every standard because someone someone might not reach it on their first try, you don't empower people, you weaken them. Trump's new initiative is also supposed to include fitness role models, updated PE curriculum, and programs to encourage lifelong health habits. It's not about shaming anyone, it's about giving kids tools to build strength physically and mentally. So, yeah, I am all for this. Bring back the mile, bring back the sit ups, bring back those little, like the presidential patches, because this world isn't getting softer and our kids need to be ready for it. Let me know in the comments, did you grow up with the presidential fitness test? And do you agree with bringing this kind of challenge back? All right, before we jump into our last story, I will share a quick little update of what's been going on with us. We took the kids to the county fair this week, and I'll say this, they both loved it and hated it at the same time. If you've ever raised toddlers, then you know exactly what I mean. We got there and immediately went looking for food because obviously. But I guess it's been a while since I've been to the fair too, because it was $65 for 3 corn dogs, a plate of nachos, a side of fries, and 3 water bottles. I'm not kidding. Like, I knew that it would be overpriced, but that kind of felt like a personal attack. And it was hot, so that definitely added to the crankiness for everyone. But we managed to rally. Kennedy, my 4-year-old, played one of those like dart and balloon games. And somehow, with 3 darts, she managed to pop 4 balloons. And she walked away with this little stuffed cow and acted like she won an Olympic medal. It was adorable. And then we wandered over to look at the actual cows and ran into a friend of ours who was showing goats at the fair. So he let us come into the pen and help feed them, which was probably my kids' favorite part of the night. We did not do any rides. I think that they're a little young for that. And personally, I don't really trust those traveling rides at all. So instead, we went and sat in the stands to watch the go-kart races that were scheduled for that night. The kids were into it for like 3 races, and then they were like, very done. So we headed home, and honestly, it was a fun time. It wasn't Pinterest perfect by any means. There were meltdowns and very overpriced snacks, but it was still a memory, and sometimes that's all that you're aiming for. Okay, speaking of relatable mom life, let's move into our last big story of the episode. So the last big story that I wanted to talk about today is inspired by an article that I came across from Glamour titled, "It's the Summer of the Crash Out." The author talks about this cultural wave that's hitting women especially hard right now, the emotional burnout, the rage, the exhaustion, that feeling that you are just one minor inconvenience away from just completely losing it. They call it crash out culture, and it's become this like viral phrase to describe what happens when the pressure builds for too long and then finally spills over. Now, just like with most left-leaning outlets, the piece points to everything from political chaos to climate anxiety to pop culture things. But let's be honest, that's kind of where these outlets always go. They want to blame women's burnout on Roe versus Wade being overturned or global warming, but I think that they're completely missing the point. Women aren't crashing out because of politics. We're crashing because we've been told for decades that the only way to be successful is to be everything, everywhere, all the time. There was a psychologist quoted in the article saying that doom scrolling and overexposure to distressing content are contributing to this collective unraveling. And her advice was to narrow your focus and only engage in what truly matters. And I read that and I thought, okay, that's actually kind of based. But here's what I want to add to the conversation, because I don't think that this crash out thing is just a summer mood. I think it's the symptom of a much deeper problem that no one in mainstream media really wants to admit. And listen, I work full time in politics. I create content every day. I am a wife. I am a mom of 2 toddlers. I host this podcast. I have a house to run and a marriage to protect and a brain that never seems to want to shut off. So when I see women online talking about how they feel like they're constantly on the verge of breaking down, I don't think it's drama. I think it's real. And I think it's happening because of what this culture has told us womanhood should look like. Okay, we told women that freedom meant doing it all, that success meant climbing the ladder, managing the household, being politically aware, looking good on Instagram, and then staying calm and collected through it all. We told women that needing help was a weakness, that asking for structure or support meant that you were failing. We told them to hustle and then to just self-care their way out of burnout. And now we're crashing. And here's where I'm going to say something that might get me in trouble with the girl boss crowd. We were not made to live like this. We were not designed to be permanently online, carrying the weight of the world, fighting every battle, managing every feeling, and then constantly proving that we're not falling apart. That's not empowerment. That is chaos. And it's not just work. It's cultural. Every day we are exposed to content that demands something from us. We are watching stories about school boards and foreign wars and grocery prices and motherhood debates and politics all before breakfast. So, yeah, it's not a shock that women are crashing. What's shocking is that we think the solution is just doing less. Here's the truth: we don't need to do less. We need to do what matters with purpose, with structure, with rest that actually restores us. Because I don't think that the real problem is work. I think it's weight. I think the weight of being everything, everywhere, all at once, the weight of being told that we have to prove that we're enough, the weight of feeling like if we drop even one ball, we're failing as women or as moms or as wives. And I'm not here to villainize working moms, okay? I am one and I love what I do, but I also know that I need rhythms in my life. I need time with my family. I need to unplug. I need to not feel like a failure for turning off the news or saying no to another project. And I need to be surrounded by women who aren't competing with me, but who are in it with me. Because crash out culture is real, but it doesn't have to be the norm. So let me know in the comments, have you been feeling this too? And if so, what do you think the solution is to solving it? Let's talk about it because I promise that if you are feeling like you're crashing, you're not alone. All right, speaking of checking in with how y'all are doing, now feels like a good time to move on to one of my favorite segments of the show, the Hot Take Hotline. And we've got a couple of good questions this week, so let's get into it. Question number one: should conservatives stop supporting Hollywood altogether, or is it okay to still love shows and movies made by the left? Okay, I know that some of y'all are going to call me a hypocrite for this, but I have not canceled my Netflix or my Disney Plus or my Apple TV or my Hulu. Like, I still watch shows and movies that were made by people who would absolutely hate me on Twitter, and I'm okay with that because personally, I don't ever want to live in an echo chamber where the only content that I consume just reinforces my own beliefs. I don't only watch Fox News or right leaning outlets, and I don't think that every show has to be squeaky clean or perfectly aligned with my worldview for me to enjoy it. My husband and I watch stuff with cuss words in it. Some of the storylines are definitely less than holy, we'll say, but I also know like where to draw the line, and I can tell when something crosses over from just being entertainment to full on propaganda, like when characters are clearly there just to check a diversity box, or a plot is written around some woke narrative that feels really forced and preachy. That's usually when I stop watching, not because I'm like outraged, but because it's just bad content and lazy writing. When it comes to my kids, though, I am way stricter. I screen everything that they watch, not because I want to raise them in like a bubble, but because I think it's my job to protect them from messages that they're not ready for. Right now, we're on a steady rotation of Spidey and Paw Patrol and Super Kitties. And so, like, for example, we like Mickey Mouse, but we do not do Cocomelon. And the only Sesame Street that we watch is episodes from like 15 years ago because there's just stuff in recent episodes that a 4-year-old has no business absorbing. And I'm not going to apologize for saying that. So, that said, we are finally starting to get some alternatives. There are people stepping up and creating content that actually reflects our values. My friend Lindsay works with We the Studios, and they're working on stuff that's like fun and professional and just not woke. And I'd say the same thing with Daily Wire and their Bank Key platform. They're giving conservative families something to say yes to, not just a long list of things to avoid. So, to actually answer the question, no, I don't think that conservatives need to boycott every mainstream platform, but I do think that we need to be smart consumers, okay? Don't just hand over your attention and your dollars and your kids' childhood imaginations to companies that openly hate you. Pay attention to the worldview behind what you're watching and just use common sense. Like, support the alternatives when you can. And yeah, if something crosses a line, then turn it off. What do you guys think? Do you still watch content from Hollywood, or have you cut it out completely? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to see how other conservative women and moms are navigating this. Okay, question number two. My best friend started dating someone who's clearly not conservative, and I feel like she's changing. Do I say something or let her learn the hard way? Okay, so here is my honest take. It's not your relationship. And unless you're seeing actual red flags, like she's being manipulated or isolated or like pressured to change who she is in an unhealthy way, then I don't think that you need to stage an intervention just because he votes differently than she does. And I will say this, exposure to a new worldview isn't always a bad thing. In fact, sometimes it can actually make you more confident in what you believe. I briefly dated a liberal in college, and he was constantly trying to convince me to vote for Hillary that year. Like it would start out as just like teasing, but then he'd kind of get serious and really start to argue about it. Like I still remember sitting on my apartment floor, basically defending my vote for Trump and all the reasons why he was clearly the better candidate. That relationship didn't last. Shocking, I know. But honestly, I kind of came out of it more firm in my beliefs than I ever was before. So sometimes I think that dating someone with different views actually sharpens you. You realize what matters most. You learn how to articulate it and you figure out what kind of person you really do want to build a life with, which for me ended up being my husband, who thankfully I don't have to defend my political views to every cycle. But back to your friend, if she's starting to question some things or explore her beliefs a little bit, that doesn't automatically mean that she's lost. It might just mean that she's growing. And as her friend, I think your job isn't to control that process. It's to be someone that she knows is still going to be in her corner no matter what. Now, if she does come to you saying, I feel like I'm losing myself or I'm changing for him and I don't like it, then that's different. But if she's just trying to figure some things out, I think let her. You can't force someone to believe what you believe, but you can be the kind of friend that she knows will be honest with her if and when she needs it. So, my advice is don't panic, don't ghost her, and definitely don't act like she's betraying you by dating someone outside of your political bubble. Just be there and trust that if this guy's not the right one, then that'll become clear soon enough. What do you guys think? Would you speak up if your friend started dating someone with completely different values, or do you just let people figure it out for themselves? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. All right, ladies, here's a moment that you might have missed. Baltimore Ravens head coach John Harbaugh recently got grilled at training camp about his visit to the White House with President Trump. Now, this came after Trump's well-known criticism of Baltimore back in like 2019. So the reporter asked Harbaugh why he would even take the invite under those circumstances. And Harbaugh's response was absolute class. Take a look.
Past Donald Trump has said, denigrating things about Baltimore, including no being people who want to live there. As a prominent representative of Baltimore.
Boy, well, how you frame that question? I would frame the question like, you got a chance to go visit with the president, man. What was that experience like? It was amazing. It was awesome. And I promise you, I root for our president. I want our president to be successful, just like I want my quarterback to be successful, and I want my team to be successful. And it was an amazing experience. It's not often you get invited and you get a chance to do something like that as a family. We were there. My daughter was there. Jim's daughters were there. My mom and dad were there. My mom and President Trump. Just seeing how he treated her was really meaningful, and
I thought this was great. He didn't shy away. He pushed back gently but firmly on how the question was framed. He said, I would have framed it like you got a chance to go to the White House with the president. What was that experience like? Like, it was amazing. It was awesome. I just love how John Harbaugh handled that moment. I think that he didn't fall for the gotcha journalism trap. He didn't get defensive. He didn't take the bait to make a little jab at Trump just to score points with the media. He was respectful and professional and honestly just like refreshingly normal. He reminded everyone that not everything has to be a political statement. Sometimes you get invited to the White House and you go because it's an honor, period. You don't owe the media some dramatic takedown or a virtue signal just because they expect one. And I think that's why this moment stood out. It was one of the few times we've seen a public figure just say something kind about a Republican president and not immediately have to apologize for it. I don't know. I just thought that video was cool and handled very well, so I wanted to share it with you guys as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for another episode of Base Behavior. Having you here listening in, thinking critically, and then sharing your own takes in the comments, it really does mean the world to me. But you already know what I'm about to say. I need your help to keep this this show growing. If you are watching on YouTube, first of all, thank you. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment your thoughts on one of today's stories, and most importantly, make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss future episodes. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and hit that follow button and leave a 5-star review. That's how we reach more conservative women, grow our community, and then keep tearing down the liberal narratives that were never meant to be questioned. I'm Erica Choinka from Politics for Her, and I'll see you next week for more based behavior.